All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi again to everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight, carving some extra time out of your evening, especially after classes have ended, for your students. I really appreciate it. Just a reminder, if you have to duck out or if you know anyone who wasn't able to make it tonight, this is being recorded and it will be posted onto our YouTube channel, and to our website, the Mason Family Connection, for you all to review again, in the future or for the first time if you weren't able to make it. I am Annabelle Spencer. I'm the grad assistant for family programs. I'm going to let Mackenzie Nelson introduce herself and then I will get us started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mackenzie Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director of Family Programs and New Student Family Programs.
Awesome. Okay, so tonight we have a campus safety webinar for you all. As you know, we have representatives here from Campus Police, the Title IX office, and Mason's Emergency Management office as well. Throughout, if any questions pop up in your mind or if you already have them locked and loaded, feel free to send them into the Q&A. That'll be at the bottom of your screen on that lower bar where the chat feature is. Just stick it in the Q&A and you may get a written response during the webinar or it may be flagged and we'll answer those live for you at the end of the webinar. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to start with Ryan in Campus Police. So if you would, before I ask you your first question, tell us who you are, your pronouns if you're comfortable, and what you do here at Mason.
Sure. Thanks, Annabelle. My name is Ryan Grant. I'm a sergeant with George Mason Police, currently assigned to the Criminal Investigations Unit. I'm a two-time Mason alumni for undergrad and graduate school. And then I got hired by Mason Police after my undergraduate time. So very happy to be here and thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so your first question, this is really good information, I feel like. What is the Rave Guardian app? How would it keep your students safe and how can it help a parent or a family member supporter stay informed?
Yep. So Rave Guardian's a mobile safety app that the university's partnered with between Dr. Ferris's group on campus and University Police. It's free on the iOS App Store, Google Play for Android users. All students, staff, faculty, basically anybody with a nexus to George Mason can download it. A bunch of the features on there, and Dave, if I miss any, please let me know. But you can talk with Mason Police through that app. Our phone number's on there. You can communicate with us via text through there. There's access to different maps of safety resources on campus from AEDs. It's also one of the ways that university safety partners can talk to students, staff, faculty about emergencies going on campus. Essentially like another avenue for Mason Alert. And the feedback I get from most students, the feature they like the most is the safety timer. So if a student feels unsafe on campus, maybe walking from a dining hall to their dorm late at night or to the parking lot where their car is, they can set the safety timer with essentially an emergency contact. And if the timer is not turned off by the time the student reaches their destination, it alerts that emergency contact to reach out to them. So a whole host of features and different resources in the app. There's so many, I'm sure I missed a few.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I've only ever heard great things about Rave Guardian. The safety timer is also for me the one that I hear the most about from students. But we are going to pivot to Tom in Title IX. Would you, before I ask you your question, introduce yourself, your pronouns if you're comfortable, and what you do here at Mason?
Yeah, thanks, Annabelle. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Bluestein. I am the Assistant Vice President for Equity and Access Services here at Mason. That means that I oversee the Title IX office, the ADA or Americans with Disability Act office, and also our non-discrimination and accessibility portions of our team. So anything from Title IX, ADA, other forms of discrimination and accessibility is my area which I oversee. I was asked tonight to go ahead and talk a little bit more about Title IX. So I'm happy to do that. Pronouns preferred are he, him, and yeah, so it's nice to see everybody.
Awesome, thank you. Your first question is, what exactly does Title IX prohibit? I know it's a law, but what kind of crimes or incidents would the Title IX office handle?
Yeah, so if you look at actually, the answer comes from policy 1202. So University Policy 1202 is the Title IX policy. That's not the exact name that it's given. However, that's kind of how it's known. So that policy itself lists out what is, quote, prohibited conduct under Title IX, as well as for the university. So things ranging from sexual harassment, whether that be creating a hostile environment or quid pro quo or this for that type of sexual harassment, different forms of sexual assault. So, rape, fondling, things like that. So criminal acts in that sense, those are different obviously than Title IX, but however, they can be criminal as well. Also things like sexual exploitation. So things such as, not having consent to record a sexual interaction or something of that nature. Taking pictures without somebody's consent, that type of thing when in, some sort of sexual interaction or sexual way. As well, it covers gender-based stalking. So really stalking is whether it be in person, online, that type of thing, unwanted communications that could be creating kind of a stalking kind of like pattern or course of conduct. So those are the things that largely are covered by Title IX. The last category would be like dating or domestic violence. So actual violence in some sort of dating relationship or a domestic relationship like a sibling, parent, that type of thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's really good to know, especially for someone who maybe has a student who doesn't know that something that happened to them might fall in that category. Thank you. Now we're going to move to Dave. Can you introduce yourself, your pronouns if you're comfortable, and what you do here at Mason?
Absolutely. My name is David Ferris. I'm the Executive Director for Safety and Emergency Management. I've been here almost 20 years, also a double grad from Mason. In addition to emergency management, I work in laboratory safety, occupational safety, fire safety, environmental compliance. I think I'm missing probably one more somewhere in there. But emergency management is where I've been spending the bulk of my time the past decade. I also am very involved in a lot of policy level stuff here that spans multiple boundaries. So working with University Police and Tom to put together things like civility and violence prevention, which is currently available to students. It's a training program that sort of talks about a lot of the resources we're going to cover tonight, but gets it into one training program. And of course, Ryan, Tom, and I have also been working on a Stop Violence webpage that I'm sure will come up multiple times, and maybe we can share that in the chat. But again, another resource to make sure we're pointing students, faculty, and staff to the resources available to them, particularly when it comes to interventions and preventing violence in the first place. And so there's been a lot of talk about how do you respond to violence. And I really commend Mason that we're taking a very proactive approach in trying to make sure we prevent it from happening in the first place. And so we'll talk about some of that. So that's my background, he, him, as my preferred pronouns. And I think my first question has to do with the emergency plans that we have on campus. And so I can talk about those. So there's really sort of two different sets of plans. And I think there's public facing plans, and I encourage you, and I certainly encourage you to encourage your student here at Mason to go visit ready.gmu.edu, which is our sort of our forward-facing readiness information, and that's procedures on how to respond to any variety of emergencies we can anticipate on campus. And that list has grown over the years. I'll be honest, in 2011, when we had an earthquake, we hadn't considered that. And so we very quickly put together guidance on how to respond to earthquakes. Fortunately, we had some faculty and students that were from California and were well-versed in those procedures. We built those. But there's a number of different guidance documents there that we encourage people to be familiar with before an emergency occurs on campus, and to include things like active threat training. We offer Stop the Bleed, which is, if you're not familiar with that, it's sort of emergency trauma care. And we also provide resources on campus. So there's tourniquets and Stop the Bleed kits we've placed throughout university buildings. And this training will talk about how to access that, how to use those resources in the event of an emergency. So we've taken a very proactive approach to emergency planning here on campus. The trainings we make available to our employees is the same training we make available to our students. So as I mentioned, there's a civilian violence prevention training we want people to take to know how to report instances of violences, whether they experience it or observe it. And then We also make a emergency preparedness training available to students, optional at the moment. We're working to make it mandatory, that talks through all the different procedures that a student should follow on campus in the event of an emergency. And that's everything from regional emergencies to fires in buildings to medical emergencies to the worst case scenario, which is of course active threat. And unfortunately, we saw something as recently as yesterday at UNLV where that occurred. But the other question may be, what plans do we have in-house? And so we have a number of plans, administrative plans as well, that sort of govern our training and exercise programs for our leadership and staff on campus to be prepared to respond, and of course provide care to our community, as well as procedures. And we call them all hazards procedures. So there's very specific things that University Police might do to respond to an active threat. And then on the emergency management side, we have a number of documents that govern how, as an organization, we convene and work through the problems. As you can imagine, it's difficult to anticipate all of them. So what we do is we have a process in place whereby we gather the right people and we work through a systematic way of identifying problems, addressing those problems. But we do have very specific plans around community assistance, which is how we would reconvene families and loved ones here on campus post-emergency, as well as guidelines for how we do things from sheltering in place on campus to potentially protecting people that have to remain on campus overnight, to evacuating campus and things of that nature. So there's a number of internal plans that we have written, practice, and exercise on a regular basis. And then we also support the local community in a variety of capacities. And most recently, we did that with Northern Virginia Community College by supporting Afghan refugees coming to the United States. And we had I'm proud to say we probably had more people than any other agency on the ground supporting these folks that were in need, using the plans that we had in place and some of the resources we'd already purchased and were able to commit to that effort. So I hope that answers the question, but I'm happy to get more detailed if there's additional questions.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. Good to hear all of that information. And then certainly if anybody else has more specifics, then we'll have plenty of time in the Q&A portion. So I'm going to move back to Ryan. Your next question regarding campus police is, what is the police escort program and how could a student take advantage of that?
Yeah, so the safety escort program is something offered by Mason Police 24/7, 365. Essentially anybody on campus. So you don't have to be a student, you could be staff, faculty, or a visitor. You would just have to call our non-emergency number, so 703-993-2810. You'll speak to one of our dispatchers and they'll send out either a full-time sworn officer to give you a walking or a vehicle escort to wherever you're going. During the school year, as calls are a little bit higher in volume, sometimes we'll send a police cadet. Those are student wage, unarmed workers that are employees of the police department while they're students here. They have the same radios as us. They have about a week of training. And sometimes they take those escort services while, there's more calls in the queue for the full-time staff on busier campus days. But 24/7, 365, that's one of the services we provide. The kind of one caveat to that is it's only from on-campus location to on-campus location. So we can't take you into Fairfax County. We can't pick you up from the mall and bring you back to campus. But, dining hall to parking lot, dorm room to library, 24/7, 365. That's why we're here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And good to know that even when things are more busy, like there is a fallback option, and the police cadets can come through for that. So thank you. Back to you, Tom. Your second question about Title IX resources is, what are confidential resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So on campus, there are basically two categories of employees. There are confidential resources or employees, and also non-confidential employees. Essentially, to talk about non-confidential employees first, non-confidential employee, every employee at the university, so that includes anyone basically getting a paycheck. So Dave, everyone on this call, Annabelle as a graduate assistant, if you're receiving compensation from the university, you are a non-confidential employee. And what that means is if you learn or someone tells you of something that could be prohibited conduct under Title IX, one of those things or multiple of those things I talked about a few minutes ago, you're actually required by law to go ahead and disclose that to the university through me as the Title IX coordinator. The reason there is that there are federal requirements that upon notice, so if an employee gets notice of a possible Title IX violation, the university is thus on notice, and then the university has to respond. And the response is providing resources and outreach to the individual that's affected. So a confidential resource is a very specific type of employee on our campus. They work in one of 4 places. So someone that works in the Student Support and Advocacy Center, or SSAC, and they're working in the sexual violence aspect of it, the piece of it. Someone that works at Counseling and Psychological Services, which is CAPS, which is counseling and mental health services for students on campus. The Student Health Center, so the doctors, nurses, individuals that are at the front desk taking intakes, everyone that works there is a confidential resource. And then also the ombuds person. So those 4 places are places that individuals on campus, whether they be a student, whether it be a staff or a faculty member, can go and disclose that they feel as if they've been the victim of some sort of Title IX prohibited conduct. And those individuals, some of them by law, can't disclose that. The easiest example is a counselor. Licensed professional counselors have duties to keep information, between themselves and their clients or their patients, and that's the kind of the basis of why those individuals don't report to our office. So, if you think about it, most employees on campus are non-confidential because those specific places. There's thousands of employees at Mason, and the individuals that are confidential probably number somewhere around 100. So it's not a huge number of individuals, but they're individuals that can definitely help someone going through something related to Title IX or other concerning things going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that clarity. That's helpful. I am going to move back to Dave with a question about Mason Alert. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about that and what it is?
Absolutely. So Mason Alert's the university's emergency notification system. And there was a question that came up in Q&A, and I hope I answered that. You can't necessarily download Rave Guardian, but you can get access to Mason Alert. And we recommend you do that by asking your student to add you to their account. And the reason we do that is when they leave the institution, so do you, and you don't continue to get Mason Alerts long after your students graduated. So Mason Alert, we will use that to send out changes to university operations. So when there's a building closure or campus closure due to weather or other emergency, and then of course any life safety issues that occur on campus, we'll make sure that gets out as well. There's a couple upgrades we've done to Mason Alert. That goes out through multiple channels. So it goes out through text, email. It can call your phone, landline or cell, and then it goes to the website. It goes to social media, and it pushes out to some of the apps that our students have access to. One of the things I think we're most proud of at Mason is a few things. One is recently we upgraded our system to automatically detect when an NWS tornado warning is issued within 3 miles of any of our campuses. It'll automatically relay that tornado warning. And that might not sound like a big deal, but those are situations we're not going to have the time to find out about it and get to a computer and log in and send that. So having that automated is really going to save time and potentially save lives. So that's a big deal. It's also integrated with a speaker system on West Campus that'll warn people when there's severe weather, lightning and tornadoes, which is exclusive to our outdoor recreation fields. The other thing that I think is particularly great about Mason, and we were one of the first adopters of this, is we have, and Ryan can talk about this, in dispatch, we have big red buttons basically, and they're exactly what you imagine seeing. But we have active threat buttons for all of our campuses, and then we have one emergency button that's general for all of our campuses. But if we had an active threat for whatever reason at Fairfax, for example, the dispatcher just has to reach across the table, hit that button, and that button automatically broadcasts to all those different modalities, communications modalities, an active threat message. It also, and this is very new, will also announce that outdoors via a massive speaker that is actually right over Annabelle's, if you're seeing Annabelle's photo, right over her left shoulder on the new building that's there above the Mason logo on Horizon Hall. Thank you very much. And there's an outdoor speaker there. And the other thing that we've done is we've integrated that with our electronic access system, which is really cool. So when that button is pressed or an active threat message is sent out. Now, it doesn't have to be button. It could be me on my phone. It could be me at my desk. If I become aware of it for whatever reason, that'll secure all electronic doors on campus, exterior and interior. And that might sound like, wait a second, we're locking people out of buildings. But if you play through the timeline of this, by the time we get the notification and hit that button, the activity in the immediate vicinity is already going to be moving, right? So there will have been action there and that could result in fatalities or injuries, but the people that are able to move will be moving away from that space and already be in a safe location. And then we secure the building. What that's intended to do is prohibit the threat from moving around campus freely, evading police, and allow our police to get to the threat quickly. And Ryan can talk more about that, but our police train, I've observed them. I'm not a police officer, but they are equipped with all the things you might want them to be equipped with, the training, the knowledge, the expertise, the weapons, and the equipment that they're going to need to respond to an event like this. And so that's Mason Alert in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I did not know about the big red button. That's super interesting. And good to know that we're getting the new speaker system above my
Yes.
shoulder. That's
It's
really cool.
there. We tested it using construction soundtracks, so nobody would know
Wow.
that it was actually being tested because we didn't want to cause
Okay.
alarm. So backing up of a truck, it might actually be our speaker, not an actual truck on campus.
Good to know. Yeah, this is definitely something I think if anybody in the on the webinar has extra questions about from a police perspective, definitely drop those in the Q&A and we can answer them at the end. My question for Ryan next has nothing to do with that. It is more of a see something, say something kind of thing. So what if a student sees something suspicious or witnesses a crime? How can they report that to you all?
Yeah, so I always tell students that the best way to contact Mason Police is to our direct phone number. It's a little bit longer than 911, the 703-993-2810 number. That goes directly to the dispatchers downstairs. So what I tell the students is, our dispatchers know the locations on each campus. They know the kind of the slang terms for them. So they're not doing anything wrong if in an emergency or you see something suspicious and your natural instinct is to call 911. That's not bad. It's going to take a little bit longer, but you're going to probably get transferred to Mason Police. But calling is always an option. We also have, like mentioned earlier, the Rave Guardian app. You can submit a tip through that. We also have a Crime Solvers submission form on the police department's website. I can put a link in the chat to that. That you can remain anonymous. You can provide your information for police to follow up with you. Or just even stopping an officer. Day-to-day officers aren't just driving around. We're walking around, biking around. We try to be approachable. So if something doesn't seem right, we're only as good as what our community makes us aware of. So that open dialogue has been, beneficial to help us respond to those potentially suspicious events.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Back to Tom, I have another question similar to what you talked to earlier. What if a student thinks something may have happened to them that may be a Title IX violation? Who should they go to, and what would happen after that process gets started?
Absolutely. So it's a classic lawyer answer, but it depends. It depends on what and Dave and Ryan laugh just because lawyer jokes are always fun. It depends on what the student's particularly looking for. If they are looking for an individual to talk to that will not report to my office because they're a non-confidential employee, they need to go see a confidential employee. So someone that works at CAPS, someone that works as SSAC, or student health, or the ombuds person. When individuals in those roles, do have things disclosed to them, they will tell the student, hey, you can submit a Title IX report. You can do it yourself. Our website, it's very apparent. It's just diversity.gmu.edu. There's a reporting form. You can go on and fill it out. So what happens when that reporting form gets filled out? It automatically comes to my team. We look at them typically the next business day. So our response rate's typically about 24 hours, unless it's a weekend. Then we wait, usually typically Monday morning. And we go ahead and conduct outreach to the individual. And that outreach is basically an invitation for them to come speak with us in our office to talk about options, support, and resources and things like that. So who should they come to really does depend on, what they're looking to get out of it. Whether it be a confidential resource or someone like, me in my office or one of my colleagues in my office. If they do tell a faculty member or, a staff member on campus, the expectation would be that person would file a report with our office, and that results in the same thing. Our office goes ahead and does the outreach. So like I said, it depends on how the student wants to be obtaining or receiving resources and kind of that conversation. Personally, I love when people will come directly to our office because I think we can help, but I definitely understand when a student just wants to work with CAPS or SSAC, and that's all they want to do and that's all they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to move back to Dave. Your next question is from a parent, supporter, family member perspective. How can they really help their students be prepared for emergencies that might happen on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I answer that question, I want to point out that Tom probably likes lawyer jokes because he is one. So that's why we. So if you got good ones, share them with Tom. He probably, although he probably already knows them. So there's a lot of things, and I think one of the best things we can do is talk about potential emergencies. We don't talk about them. You know, I've got a 10 and a 12-year-old, and we have talked about, you know, they call them different things in grade school than we do in higher ed, but you know, having those conversations, those can be difficult. You know, have you thought about what's going to happen if this happens? And I know we want to jump to active threat, but you know, the statistics would show that it's probably not going to be active threat. It's probably a power outage, communications failure. You know, something's going to happen on the road while they're traveling. But having those conversations and thinking through what happens when your car breaks down and you don't have the help that you need, or you're alone. What happens if you're in a situation where you feel like you're being attacked, intimidated, stalked? What action are you going to take? And as a matter of fact, I had a woman here at Mason. This was unbelievable to me because sometimes I feel like, you know, what are we doing? Are we having an impact? And she said to me, she goes, I attended one of your trainings. You came and talked to her office. And a couple of weeks ago, apparently she was confronted by some gentlemen well, they weren't gentlemen, some men in a van, and they were asking for help. And she goes, it very quickly became apparent to me that it was becoming odd, suspicious, and it was against her nature to be rude. But she goes, I was thinking what you told me is like, you have to sort of this survival arc, right? Think about the situation, come to a conclusion, and act, even though it might feel uncomfortable. And sometimes responding to an emergency or behaving in a way that's going to protect yourself might seem silly. Like I saw this happen during the earthquake when people were reluctant to acknowledge that it was an earthquake, and they sometimes hesitated to take the right action. So having that conversation with your student and talking about what would you do in these various scenarios, and then making sure that they've had an opportunity or have in fact reviewed our procedures, understand how to contact university police, understand the resources available to them here at campus, and that they shouldn't be ashamed or shy to speak up if they see something that seems out of place or a person out of place. We might be reluctant to say something about an individual because we feel like we might be profiling them, or we might be held accountable for accusing of something they didn't do. We'd much rather have a person report to us something that turns out to be nothing than something. And so getting people to be comfortable taking action when it feels uncomfortable or unnatural, or acknowledging that the bad things can happen is a big step. And I have that conversation with my children and wife, and sometimes people don't want to hear it and are reluctant to do that. I worry particularly about those individuals because I feel as if in the moment they're going to freeze. There's a fantastic book with a title that's rather sensational called Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why. And one of the premises of the book, she's a fantastic speaker if you ever get a chance to see her, but she's a wonderful author as well. Amanda Ripley. She writes that most of us are going to freeze in a crisis. And I've both witnessed this. I've experienced it in some cases myself when I've been confronted by something I don't know how to respond to. Understanding how to respond, practicing that, thinking it through is gonna make a big difference if, God forbid, that happens to any of us. And so the more we can talk about it, although it's not pleasant, I think the better off we're all going to be.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That is good advice. I am going to take us back to Ryan. What kind of training do campus police officers and police cadets receive, particularly surrounding like de-escalation for maybe mental health crises or race or cultural sensitivity training?
Yeah, so police cadets, just being the nature that it's a student wage job, get less training than full-time sworn certified officers, but they still do get the cultural diversity training provided from the university. Mason police officers get that as well by Commonwealth law. It's written into the state code. We're required to have 2 hours of cultural diversity to be eligible for recertification. That's essentially like a continuing education credit for police officers in Virginia. A vast majority, I'm going to say, I think our current stat is over 80% of Mason's police officers have attended the basic crisis intervention training. So they're CIT officers. That CIT course is not a course in which you would just kind of show up, attend, and pass. There's practicals, there's tests in it, and that's training the officers to, recognize when somebody may be in crisis, recognize what resources may be best to serve that person who is in crisis or experiencing a troubling time. And putting together the pieces of what resources, whether Mason resources or community-based resources, would be best for that person. We also have a therapy canine Bungie. I know that was mentioned in the comments earlier, as part of our crisis response team. So over 80% of the officers are CIT trained. We have probably, I think our current number is 4 CIT training instructors, including myself. So we're not only in going to this training regularly to receive the certification, but officers that work here are also giving back and providing instruction in this arena as well.
Awesome. That is so good to know. Thank you for that. Our final pre-written question is for Tom. How could a family member or supporter help their student learn the signs of possible abuse?
Yeah, so there's a lot of resources out there that contain information about kind of what are the signs or symptoms, if you may, of someone that's been sexually assaulted or in an abusive relationship, et cetera. One of the better organizations that I have found and point people to, it's an organization called RAINN. It's the I never remember the name because I always remember them as RAINN, but they're the Rape and Incest National Network. They have a terrific website that actually has quite a good article about different types of situations and different types of warning signs, depending on the kind of age group of the individual. For example, they have resources for college age students. They also have children, as well as older adults, maybe beyond the traditional college ages. So I'll definitely post that link in the chat. But from just kind of my experience doing this work for a long time, some of the major things that I've seen that I think people can recognize, especially in the college age, are major changes in habits, which actually crosses a lot of those different age groups. If you do look at the research, things like individuals not finding joy in things they usually find joy in, withdrawing. One of the big things with college age students is a noticeable change in productivity for classes, things like that. Those signs and symptoms are some of the more classic ones. It also can be in college age risky behaviors, new or different risky behaviors, drinking to excess, experimenting with illicit drugs, or doing other risky behaviors, like self-harm. Those types of things are traditionally in the college age area, some of the warning signs that people can help look out for. But I'll go ahead and post, if individuals are really interested in looking at the article, the link to RAINN.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so if anyone else has any continued questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. I know some of them have been answered already, but if you have any more that are lingering, feel free to drop them in there. I just want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, has been recorded, will be posted on our YouTube, and then we'll go ahead and post that in the Mason Family Connection. So if you rewatch it, or in a day or two from now, think of something that maybe you didn't ask, you feel free to put a comment and we'll be able to connect you with the right people. But I just want to thank our panelists so much for being here in the evening and getting close to winter break. I just really appreciate all of you. This has been so nice, and I hope that this information is helpful for everyone who attended or watches this later. But with that, we have one, and I was about to close it down. Okay, we have one that says, I have visited campus quite a lot of times. this year visiting my students or other activities, I don't see a police presence or cruisers around. Why? Maybe just, I mean, I don't know, but maybe just a chance. I see people all the time, but maybe Ryan, you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I mean, I promise we're here. I'm here. It seems like 7 days a week, but we're there. There's a mix between marked cars, unmarked cars. Obviously officers on bicycles they're not as noticeable from further distances as officers driving a big marked police car, but we're here. There's a whole host of us day and night. We're staffed 365. We'll be here through winter break. So I'm not sure the specifics of where you were on campus. I think obviously a lot of times during like heavy class time changes, we try to be where the most people are. So we do have a visible presence in case anybody had questions or needed assistance, but we're here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave, also for putting this in the chat about if you have any specific questions about emergency management or the safety program. That's their contact information. Feel free to copy any of these links that have been put in the chat that are really helpful. And then, like I said before, drop a comment on the post. Oh, we have 2 more. Okay. Are there self-defense classes available for students to take on campus?
So Mason Police currently doesn't offer any self-defense classes or I know that some other institutions offer the RAD classes. We don't presently offer that. What historically we've done is offered personal safety, situational awareness classes for registered student organizations, fraternity and sorority life. If your student's a part of an organization or their residence hall wants to have a presentation by us, you can call that general police phone number and they'll route you to one of our community outreach officers to get you scheduled for a presentation.
And beyond those types of classes, there are some classes offered through university the rec centers in university life that are self-defense. And so your student could look on the University Life's website to try to find some of those courses. When I say course, it's not like an academic for credit class necessarily. We're talking about, a one-off or a series of kind of one-off meetings.
Awesome. Thank you. We have one more. I know sometimes there's issues on campus with maybe people who are doing some sort of demonstration, whether it be religious or non-religious. And some people have negative experiences with that. We have someone asking, what should a student do if they're feeling like they're being badgered by someone on campus and they can't get away? Do you have like a tip for that, or what do you think?
So I think I know which incident we're talking about. There's one particular person that comes to campus and is exercising their free speech, and what we've recommended that students do is report that through one of the many channels that are either through stopviolence.gma.edu, and then we're aware of that individual. We're trying to engage that individual to make sure they understand where the threshold is, where it crosses over from free speech to harassment. And so if it's persistent and they are, actively pursuing somebody, that becomes a problem for us and we can intervene. So the challenge is how fast can we get there and observe this behavior and stop it. But we are working with anybody that comes on campus to make sure they're following our policies and procedures, which they are subject to.
Right. Thank you so
much. Report it. I mean, we need to know about it, and we need actionable information. We need to be able to know enough information we can identify the person that was doing that, and that can be hard. So that might be a police tip. It might be a picture. It might be I know the person's name. It was this person that was there. We have a pretty extensive camera network, particularly in the areas where these types of activities kind of happen, and we're able to maybe identify that individual. So if they were to come back, we could engage with them, and if they're in violation of university policy, we have a couple options available to us to stop the behavior or even remove them from campus.
Okay, yeah, good to know. Great. Well, if no one has anything else, I just want to reiterate thank you to everyone, for our panelists for being here, for Mackenzie holding down the chat the whole time, and for all of you participants for taking time out of your night to be here. We just appreciate you so much and hope that you and all of your students have a nice and restful break. And make sure to check the Mason Family Connection in the spring when we post our whole new schedule. And we look forward to hosting all of you again. But have a good night.